Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. Flora McCormick is back and joining me to chat all things sibling transitions. Flora is an amazing professional counselor and parenting coach who's passionate about supporting parents and helping them find ways to feel empowered and effective in their parenting choices. She's an experienced parent educator and she teaches parenting workshops in her community. And she has served for the past 2 years as an early childhood mental health consultant. She's the owner of Sustainable Parenting and a monthly columnist for the Montana Parent magazine. She has some great input for today's topic and it really kind of opened my mind up. So I hope you guys enjoy it as well. I won't keep you too much longer, so let's get into it. Thank you so much for joining me today and for coming back. I'm really excited to have you come to chat with me again.
Absolutely. Me too, Madison. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I'm super excited because I know that we're going to kind of tap a little bit into a similar conversation that we had last time, just about sibling transitions, because there is so much to tackle with it. But I know we really want to kind of focus in on that toddler aspect. And I find that that tends to be the most common age bracket with kiddos. And it can be the most nerve-wracking one when bringing a baby home, because you never know if your toddler's going to be, what kind of Sour Patch state they're going to be in, as I like to say, right? Like, are they sour? Are they sweet? Are they just in their own world? So I'm super excited to get some input from you on this. I know in the last episode you gave a little bit of background to yourself, but I would love if you want to share a little bit more about, who you are and what you do and how you got into all of this.
Absolutely. So my name's Flora McCormick. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. So licensed counselor who specialized in working with kids directly. And then during that work, I just noticed, boy, I'm like having 45 minutes a week to try to improve relationships and behavior in kids as young as 2, more commonly closer to 6 and 8 or 10. But, people having challenges way into those early years and just not having a model of where is help besides a counselor. And so, this field of parent coaching has now grown, and you can call it parent counseling, parent coaching, but saying you don't have to have a clinical issue specifically, and we don't have to have the child come to therapy to improve things that are not going well with the child.
Right.
So we can equip and empower parents with better tools, and then we see way better results in the relationship, in the child having emotional regulation tools, in the whole family having more calm and ease, which then leads to, things going better at school. So just, I really enjoy the work, and that's my background.
I love that. And it's so true. I find that even when I work as a sleep consultant, I love doing my work virtually because it really is about like coaching the parents, right? And like giving these parents tools to help their kid, right? Because every parent
Yes.
wants their kid to have better success. But I think
Yes.
that sometimes it's so hard to know where or how to do so. So
Yes.
being able to support these children from all different like avenues, whether that is from, somebody in therapy as a counselor or now as their parents, kind of giving them a united front feels like probably so reassuring for children.
Absolutely. And I think it's a growing field, just like in your field, with sleep support, that unfortunately our culture has been not on the ball with saying, of course, this is something we could use support with. We
Right.
get business coaching, understanding you don't just innately know how to do sales, but we don't get parent coaching to know, it's very common that you don't innately know how to deal with a fussy baby
Right.
that doesn't sleep, or how to deal with a very strong-willed child that wants to keep arguing with you. So
Yeah.
it's just about learn those tips and tricks. And I do know there's a lot out there on the internet. So then people think, okay, I can just, get all these ideas for free. But as you know, also sometimes the best thing with a coach is it narrows it down to just a one-to-one. You can ask a
Yes.
question, get a direct
Yeah.
personalized answer. and not be overwhelmed with the 75 different
Oh,
roads
yeah.
you could go down.
Well, and because you do any type of research and you're going to find a million different answers, but also you're going to find some answers that are telling you that this can do a bad thing if you do something this way. And other articles are going to tell you that that's the best way to do things. And so realistically, like when you're talking about children, like everyone truly has their own opinion, but being able to like truly support in that one-on-one is totally a game changer, I think. And I
I
think that
think so
especially
too.
with
Yeah.
toddlers, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, toddlers they call them three-nagers for a reason, right? It's
Yep.
like this this special point in time they've got budding personalities, budding capabilities that get them very excited. Like, wow, I can finally walk, run, climb, talk. I think the world probably should run how I imagine, Like
Right.
I think I get to take over the world, just like teenagers are finally in this like, I think I'm basically a grown-up. And yet you're
Yeah.
like, but hold on, there's a few more things we still need to negotiate here and teach you. And
Yeah.
that can be very frustrating for the excitement. It's a really exciting time. And so if you
Right.
know how to channel it, then you can channel it for good. But if you don't understand how those challenges can be best channeled, then you're going to just be fighting a lot more in both of
Right.
those stages, toddlers and or teenagers. So I definitely recommend those are two really key points to get support. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I feel like there's so much transition now. If we're talking about bringing another baby home, especially if you have a little one that's, anywhere between 2 and 4 years old in that kind of like exploratory phase, you
Yeah.
definitely are bringing in another aspect of change and
Yeah.
children truly strive off routine. So to add more change to it is overwhelming. Do you
Yeah.
find that there's specific ways that we can support this change like prior to it actually happening?
Yes, definitely. So one random thing I want to share, and I hope this is okay for your audience, but there's an interesting book that came out a few years ago called How to Raise Kids Who Aren't A-Holes, but it does say the whole word.
I love it.
It's a very catchy title. And so as I saw it come out, I was like, oh, I got to read this. I love
Yeah.
to read all of the newest books. And the thing that's interesting about this book, it wasn't written by a child expert. It was written by a researcher who, as a mom of a young child herself, said, I want to know what the best like stats are out there. I don't want to just assume or from pop culture. I want to know the numbers.
Right.
And so one of the interesting things that she found is actually that two-thirds of parents have this assumption that like a firstborn child is going to have negative feelings towards a second child coming. And new
Mm,
research in 2012 showed that that actually isn't the case. That the majority of firstborn children actually feel pretty positively adjusted to having a new sibling.
that's great.
So the first key thing that you can do to help is to not play into any of these stereotypes like,
Right.
oh, I know you're going to be kicked off your throne. And oh my gosh, is our little princess going to have competition now? And I say that because we can unknowingly feed the thing that we
Yeah.
don't want, right? We can do this with vegetables. Like, come on, you have to eat those things so you can have what you really like. Well, what if our wording instead is like, yeah, we get to have yummy carrots and yummy rice and yummy chicken nuggets, like we're putting it all in the same category. And so I think we can do a better job of speaking that way about siblings that are coming along too. You are
Right.
going to have a new sister, someone that eventually you'll get to play with, someone who might even look like you, someone that you get to be a special big sister helper with,
Yeah.
so projecting those positives, I think, is really important.
Yep.
I'm not saying we need to be Pollyanna and fake that there won't be negative feelings
Right.
sometimes. That's true in every relationship of, any two people. However, let's set a stage that can have some positivity to it also.
Absolutely. And I think that people either feel like, yeah, my kid's going to be one way or the other, right? Or like they have something going on currently with their toddler's emotional regulation and are worried about how that's going to change or, get worse or better when
Mm,
a new baby comes along, or I've had clients who've had like some really rough and tumble like little toddlers, and they're like, oh, I'm worried about, baby safety with some of these things, or our ability to be more gentle, or if you have a high energy toddler, like their abilities to keep up with their energy levels and all of that as well. Do you have different suggestions on how to approach this depending on like children's personality, or does it kind of
Mm.
more all similar like input depending on the kiddos' personalities and whatnot?
That's such a great question, Madison. I mean, it's back to what we were just saying about coaching, and that, like, I definitely, there's not a one size fits all. There's not a one parenting tool that fixes every
Right.
situation. Every child has its unique makeup and a combination with unique personalities in their caregivers and unique personalities in their siblings. So there are many dynamics. I can't say, just a blanket thing that's going to always work. But I think today we can generally talk about some concepts if you have a child that has power struggles, which
Yeah.
I think can come with those that are more shy, those that are more physical. So maybe we can categorize some tips today that help with power struggles specifically.
Yeah.
But I think I want to also say in response to your question that if you can predict it, make a plan for it.
Yeah.
So, meaning if you've got a super physical kid and there's something in your gut going, I wonder how that's going to go with baby, let's not just hope for the best and only plan for the best. Like, let's be
Right.
calm, okay, honey? No, let's assume that worst case scenario, Murphy's Law,
Right.
whatever could go wrong probably will have those challenges that you're predicting in your gut. So make a plan for it. Some of what I teach parents is I call it the two roads. Like, let's make a plan that, when you're wanting to be physical with the baby, you can rub its legs, you can tickle its feet. And when you do that, you get to keep playing. If you grab, pull, smother, we will take you away from baby and give you a little break. So
Right.
those are the two roads, the happy road, the sad road, defining for them what the appropriate way is to be
Yeah.
physical and defining for them what the boundary will be if they choose the inappropriate way.
Yep. I
So
think it's
make a
so,
plan.
yeah, it's so important to kind of plan. And I do so much planning with my clients, right? Like I have the whole name of the podcast is the Postpartum Plan podcast, right? Like the goal is to prepare for that postpartum. And there is in the workbook that I have, like a part of it being sibling support. And even like when people have first babies, I talk about like pets being your first kids, right? Because there's
Uh-huh.
these other members of the household that still are going to need attention and support. And like you said, like preparing almost for the worst. So maybe
Mhm.
you have a family member who can come once a week and take your kid to go like run around outside, or maybe you go to like a jumpy park, or something
Yeah.
that can come sometimes help that process for you as you're recovering is like really, really huge.
And isn't it interesting though too, Madison? Like we know that we can, especially sitting in our clinical state, in our
Right.
helpful like desk, know that. And yet I also know as a mom of two kids that it's so funny that it somehow can feel like the last thing you have any time for is the
Right.
planning. And so I do find it's like I have to do it for myself. And I certainly try to remind my clients again and again. I know that you feel like you don't have the energy, but in
Right.
the end, we end up with one of two things. You're going to spend the energy one way or the other. You can choose to spend it putting out fires, or you can choose to spend it on prevention.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
man, I know every time I actually get my brain to get that, like to quit just the flow of life and just
Yeah.
taking each day as it comes and go, stop. Let's just, like this is so small, but yesterday I just cleaned out like two drawers in my closet of like my pants, and I've been struggling for months and months getting frustrated
Oh
trying
my
to cram things
gosh.
back in because they don't fit and I can't find pants I want to wear, so I'm pull five of them out and then they're sitting in a big pile. And then what do? Cram them back in. And then the next day I'm like doing it. And it's so funny how we can just end up on these hamster wheels. Same thing with
Yeah.
kids. Why every day does he scream for me from his crib and I'm already tired from the baby and he's just screaming, screaming, screaming till I get there. And you're like, but yeah, did you come up with a plan? Like I finally took time this weekend to organize, get out the pants I'm not actually wearing, roll up and make a new system for how the ones are going to
Yeah.
be in there that I do wear. Similar you could do for the bedtime, right? It's like, oh yeah, let's buy an okay to wait clock. Let's, make a plan with them that they have two toys within reach that if they wake up before that okay to wait clock is ready, they can play with that. And we make
Right.
these two roads of when you do that, then this is what happens when we get you. And when you don't, this is what happens when we come get you.
Yeah.
So take the time for prevention, for a plan. And I just say to your listeners, because I know we all can end up there, I promise it'll pay off. I
Ugh,
promise it's a more
it so
worthwhile
does.
place to spend your energy.
It so does. I love that.
I like woke
Now,
up this morning and I grabbed that pair of pants and I was like, okay,
you're
I'm
like, let's
so
take
glad
on the
I spent
day.
30 minutes. It's just so funny how our
I
brains
know.
get stuck thinking, I'm too tired to spend the time on that.
I know. But you
But
have to
we
do it no
keep on
matter
this
what.
hamster wheel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have that kind of like bit of prevention, right? Like, prepare, right? Now, what I hear a lot of people asking me, like when I'm in the hospital, I know that that's going to be a trickier time for my toddler, whether they're going to be with a grandparent or a different caregiver, or my partner's going to be going back and forth. But then also, like, I hear some parents being like, okay, yeah, I want to take all the time I can in the hospital to recoup before I come home so that I know I'm
Mhm.
recovered a little bit more. And I
Yeah.
hear people also saying the opposite of like, I want to get right back home to my toddler.
Yeah.
And in both of those situations, I get the question a lot of like, well, when should I bring them in and how, right? I saw the
Mhm.
trend online for so long of like, everybody taking the video of the toddler coming into the room to see the baby. And so many people in the comments are like, put the baby down, make sure you're not holding the baby when the toddler walks in. And I'm like,
Oh.
is that really gonna change like
Uh-huh.
how this toddler feels about the baby, right?
Yeah.
They're coming into this new space. So do you have any tips and tricks for this like
Yeah.
first introduction, whether it is in the
Yeah.
hospital or it is as baby comes home?
Yes. Well, first piece of this is let's drop the shoulds. Don't should on yourself. You know what
Right.
that sounds like? It's true, right? We get so many shoulds around us. So whatever the current trend is, first thing I want to say is that does not mean that's the right
Absolutely.
best thing. Listen to your gut. I'll never forget when I was trying to start potty training and a friend at a music class said to me, oh, we had the thing that totally works. You should do this. It's going to work perfectly for you. She emailed me the 3-day solution that was going to absolutely solve all my problems.
Yep.
And it totally did not work for my kid. And then what did I feel like when she's like, oh, this will work and it should be done this
Yep.
way? Then when it didn't work out, I felt all this shame and blame on myself that something's wrong with me or wrong
Right.
with my kid. So I don't want people to do that with the introduction too. If you put too much pressure, this is how it should be done, or else you're ruining their sibling
Right.
relationship for
Yeah.
life. I'm sorry, but I have been a parenting coach now for almost 20 years, and I have never had anyone say, I think it all comes back to how we introduced them in the hospital or
Right.
whether we did it at home. I mean, it's just I'm not aware of any research study that has proven that that makes or breaks a relationship. So let's just like bring down our expectations a
Yeah.
little bit of how heavy this should is and say there are many ways you can do it. I'll just share one thing that I did that I think was fun and was helpful, but I'm not saying this is a should,
Yep.
which was that I wanted there to be a mutual relationship building. It's not just about me and my oldest and wanting to put the baby down so that that oldest feels like I still love them. I wanted to build a relationship between siblings. So I planned for the toddler to bring a gift to the baby and for the baby to have a gift for the toddler. So
Hmm.
we had a little stuffed animal at the hospital that when my son showed up, it was like, oh, and Eva has a gift for you too. And like, oh, you guys are gonna, and starting this language, like I said before, about
Yeah.
positivity isn't this is just the start of you guys sharing toys with each other and enjoying time together. So that was what I tried to focus on. But again, I am not saying that is the should that's just
Yeah. But
another
it's just a good
idea,
option.
just an option. Please see them all as options. And
Yeah.
whether you stay at the hospital or you go home, I think that's largely more just care for yourself. You cannot give what you do not have. One of my favorite parent coaches, Hunter Clark Fields, says that in her podcast. And it's so true, is just so, if it feels like you are going to be a little more able to come home and play with that toddler a bit when you get there, to have an extra night at the hospital, great. If you feel like you can't wait to get home and be with your toddler also, great. I do not think there's a right or a wrong reason there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And then it comes to the actual after, right? Like baby now is home. And I know that then it's okay. A lot of people do the divide and conquer because you don't have enough energy. And typically, baby needs mom more often than not, especially if you're breastfeeding. And, typically toddler needs to be entertained and wrangled and fed and slept and all those things too. And so typically partners tend to do that, is what I find is a very like common quote unquote practice of a new family
Yeah.
like that with two babes.
Yeah.
And I know that that can be like really hard for some people, especially if especially for moms who have been the default parent to kind of give that up. And then especially, when somebody goes back to work, trying to then multitask both children afterwards as well. Do you have any like tips and tricks for helping to make things more special, like throughout the process? Like I know you mentioned, you
Mm.
know, boundaries of like, hey, yes, you can do X, Y, and Z with baby, but maybe not these things, and kind of setting those expectations early on. Um, but obviously there's going to be a lot of like babies sleeping, and there's going to be a lot of like baby feeding and those types of things
Mhm.
going, and diaper changes going on. So is there
Yeah.
any way that you have found that can kind of like help toddlers to feel like they're part of this new like life a little bit more too?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to just say that's exactly it, is have them be a part of the process. So I think that we parents, especially moms, I will stereotype, tend to think that it's all about us filling their cup. And just like I just said, with the way that we handled the hospital room moment of meeting, I think it's really important to not see, okay, I've got to fill his cup, I got to fill her cup. Okay, I got to make sure that I'm always meeting this person's need and that person's need. But building that teamwork mentality
Yeah.
between all of you makes such a difference. And I mean, I'll be honest, I know that I'm probably a little extra biased on this because I'm the youngest of three raised by a single mom who became a single mom when she had a 1, 3, and 4-year olds.
Mm.
And she was a kindergarten teacher at the same time,
Oh my
Madison.
gosh.
So talk about like if you're touched out or like feel
Yeah.
like you've had to have so much patience, you're at the end of your rope.
Oh,
This woman was there, right? I'm sure every day coming home after a day of kindergarten to three young toddlers and a
yeah.
baby, or two toddlers and a baby. So I just say this from a personal reflection place, even that, we have wonderful relationships between me and my siblings and between us and our mom. And I think a part of it was there was always this teamwork mentality. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes when we're not forced into that, we've got two parents and two kids, we get more like, okay, we just have to meet all their needs. It's us to them, us
Yeah.
to them. And just remember there are gifts and strengths to those moments where they have to wait or where they
Yep.
can be helpful to the other person that needs something and see that as a team. So what can that look like for your little toddler? I've known some people that make a little toddler diaper bag that
Yeah.
is like a way that they have their own little set of a diaper and a wipe. And, who knows the moment that they might be the hero. I mean, gosh, I wish I had done that with my son. I didn't get the idea till they were older. But there was a moment where I forgot a diaper and a wipe, and we went on a hike. We had driven like an hour and a half from our house, and then we had
Oh,
to basically turn right around because I forgot to bring a diaper for the baby. And maybe that would have been a place where the toddler got to be the hero. Like, oh, I have
yeah.
mine, mommy. Other times I would involve the baby or the toddler in reading to the baby when I was nursing. So
Yeah.
instead of saying, I can't play with you, I can't play with you, I would say, oh yes, I would love for you to play with me and Eva while I'm nursing her. Like, you can make things up, like it helps the baby nurse better if you like rub my feet, or if you drive your tractor up and down my legs, it'll help my circulation so I can nurse
Yeah.
better. Or, why don't you go choose a story that you could read? Obviously a toddler can't read, but my toddler and most toddlers will read the Brown Bear
Oh,
book, quote
yeah.
unquote read, right? They've heard the
Right.
story so many times they can turn the pages and tell the story. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, bring over Brown Bear and read it to sister while I'm nursing. So I think there are ways, and I used to do that also when I was trying to put the baby to sleep for a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Is I remember times where the toddler would try to come in and want to play. And I'd give those demon eyes, like, don't you
Yep.
dare make any noise. I'm trying to get this baby to sleep. Like, sort of like
Yes.
the look of like, please be quiet. Please don't bother
Uh-huh.
us. And many times, like couple times of that did not work, just invited him to want more of my attention. So instead, we made a plan. Again, back to planning in
Mm-hmm.
advance. Okay, I can predict this is going to happen again. So let's make a plan for it. We came up with, let's, when I'm singing songs to the baby to sing it to sleep, I would love for you to come in and help me sing those songs. So we'd sing the songs together, or he would listen in a story if I was reading a story. Or I could try to kind of read a story to him while I was nursing. Sometimes you're doing a little multitasking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in general, I think just involving them and not seeing like, not feeling that you have to be the one that's filling each child's cup alone.
Hey guys, it's Madison. Yeah, I'm here interrupting myself, but I wanted to take a minute to talk about something that can feel so overwhelming as a parent: sleep. So, if you are in the thick of the sleepless nights, struggling to figure out how to get your baby and yourself to get more rest, then I want you to know that you're not alone. Here's the thing: if what you're doing is working for you, great, keep doing it. But if it's not, there are resources to help, and I'm happy to be one of them. As a certified pediatric sleep consultant, I work with families to create personalized sleep plans that actually make sense for your current and unique situation. No cookie cutter advice, just practical strategies that match your parenting style and your child's personality. Because let's be real, sleep is not a luxury, it is a necessity. So, if you're ready to make a change, I'd love to help. You can book a free sleep connection call on my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com, or reach out to me on Instagram at serenemoments.doula. I love that. I think that just the basic idea, like so many of my things that I hear people saying is like, yeah, I have to make sure that my toddler doesn't hate my baby because I have to give them attention by feeding them, or like, I want to make sure the toddler doesn't like dislike or feel like my energy is being taken from them because of the baby, right? Like we put so much
Hmm.
effort and emphasis, I feel like, especially in the world, like on keeping them from hating each other, when the reality is like you were saying, they can give to one another too. And I think like putting more focus on that can really truly create an even better relationship. And like you were saying, I think hopefully some people are like taking a deep breath and realizing that like they don't need to be the one and only thing that's being poured into their kids' cups, right?
Yes, and I really want to touch on something you just said, which I think is that we put so much pressure on them not hating the baby, but what are we saying that's mostly about? We're thinking that's mostly about them being happy.
Right.
If they're happy and they're never upset, equals they will love the baby. But actually, I want to introduce a very different equation, which I find is more often the case. And there's countless sibling books that back this up. This is going to be true between your kids from now until adulthood, that they tend to develop better feelings towards each other when number one, they are comfortable and used to things not always being equal. They're
Mm.
comfortable and used to how to work through difficult emotions without them being fixed or rescued,
Mm-hmm.
right? How am I going to feel better towards my sibling when I'm upset or jealous? That's not just that mom makes me happy. It's
Right.
that I've learned how to have struggle muscles and self soothe and know it's okay. She loves me even if she can't do XYZ for me in this
Absolutely.
moment, right? We need
Right.
so much more of this in our parenting world right now. It's Ross Green, or excuse me, Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Anxious Generation, talked about this recently, calling it, we need more lazy parenting.
Yes.
Meaning we've got too much helicopter or snowplow parenting. We're trying to constantly clear the road, that there's nothing that's
Mm-hmm.
bothering them, that we are hovering and thinking we have to constantly be playing with and entertaining. I mean, that's one of the questions I get is like, how do I keep my toddler entertained while I'm nursing, or entertained while I'm reading, or
Right.
entertained? And you're like, ooh, I like to back it up and go, let's really deconstruct the fact that that's our question. Let's maybe take it from a different angle. What if our goal, instead of entertaining, was helping them build their struggle muscles and self-soothing muscles and knowing it's okay.
I love that. I love that because it's so true. I think that children are less creative and less, open to exploring when they are not left to struggle, right? Like they have to kind of have a little bit
Figure it
of
out
that
a
like
little bit.
boredom in order to come up with new things.
Right, boredom is the fertile ground of creativity, not always
Yes.
having yourself entertained.
I love it. I love it. It's so true. It's so true. And I think people just want things to be the best for their kid. But I think, yeah, like remembering just because you're making it easy for them now doesn't mean that it'll be easy for them down the line by,
Right.
doing it all for
Yes.
them.
So I give parents a lot this equation of like what you can do instead is an acronym I call NIP. You want to nip that feeling in the bud. You're like, oh, I don't want him to be so sad or so like jealous or
Right.
disappointed. Here's what I want you to think about instead, though, is you're going to focus on supporting the feeling rather than fixing it or rescuing them from the
Mm,
feeling. So NIP, the simple acronym is N, you notice or name it. Boy, you're frustrated. It is hard to wait while mommy is nursing. That is sometimes hard. I'm listening, I'm validating that this is a real feeling and you are entitled
it,
to feel that, but I'm not fixing it or I'm not rescuing. I can just say, ah, that is hard. I can see how hard that is for you and that you're very frustrated. And I know this is very counterintuitive for most of us. We're like, okay, but then how do we fix it? How do we fix it? How do we fix
yeah.
it? And I encourage parents to start getting comfortable with an 80-20 percentage that's different than what you're typically doing. So instead of 20% validating, 80% solving it, like, oh, I can see you're sad. Oh, I know it's hard. How about you go try this? You do this. Would this solve it? Would this make it better? Like, that's the flip flop 20/80. We're only doing tiny validation and then a lot of time on problem solving. And it typically doesn't go as well as if we can flip
Hmm.
that
Right.
and see it as the correct 80/20s. Just spend 80% of whatever amount of time you have to say, oh, I see you're sad. Oh, that is hard sometimes. Yes, my goodness. It is hard to wait our turn sometimes, isn't it? Rubbing their back, validating with words, giving a smile.
Yeah.
And then maybe we get 20% like, I wonder what we could do to make this better.
Hmm.
And maybe that is the pivot towards would you like to grab a book to read to sister? Or, oh,
Right.
maybe you just need some space to be upset for a little bit. And I'm happy to give you a hug or space to calm down. But that you really can go so far. This is a tool you'll use until, again, well into adulthood. If you're like, I don't think that's right. I think I should fix it for them so they learn emotion regulation. I think we're living in a world right now where we're forgetting we don't just learn emotion regulation by another person always doing it for us.
Right.
Let's do it with them. Absolutely, we can support them. That's what you're doing by naming the feeling. You name it to tame it. That's what most of us want in adulthood, right? You
I
go to
love
your
that.
husband, you say, I had the worst day grocery shopping today. Like this person cut in front of me and they had like 500 things in their cart and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And if you say, if that person says back to you, like, oh, let me make it better for you, I'm sure we can just do this or do that. You kind of feel like, what you're not ready to go there yet,
Right.
right? You usually want someone to go, oh, I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
That
I love
is
that.
hard.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that's it, right? You don't
Right.
need them to solve it, right? How many times has a girlfriend or your husband had a solution that you're like, oh, I didn't need a solution from you. I know how to solve it. I knew what to do.
Just want to
I,
vent sometimes.
yes,
Absolutely.
we all, and this is true for our kids. We love emotionally to have someone connect to our emotion. And so it's so powerful.
I love that. I love that. I think that, yeah, really as a whole, I think a big takeaway that I hope people get from this is just kind of reframing, right? Like, viewing it a little bit differently and trying to kind of, get yourself to stop thinking of, like you said earlier, like don't, compare yourself, I guess is the word, to social media and the things that you're seeing online. And like those should have, coulda,
Mm.
wouldas are really, let's throw them out the window, right? Like just do what you
Yes.
feel is going to be good for your family.
Oh, that was so transformational for me as a mom, Madison. And it still is something I have to keep pulling. It's a tug of war. You can start getting sucked down the
Yeah.
road, the hole of shoulds again at every stage of parenting. But man, if you grow those muscles of being able to say, like, I love how you put it in words of like, it's just an option. It's a
Yeah.
suggestion. You get to choose. And
Yeah.
it's like, let's see it like a lovely sushi train. What are those like, you go
Oh,
to a
yeah.
fancy place and there's like the little boat of the sushi options going by. You're like, I think I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to choose that one. If you can see that a little bit more, like, okay, these things that are there are just options. And even the guilt that we feel if we're not doing the should is an option.
Right.
A recent book that I found was from Pooja Lakshman called Real Self-Care, and it's for women. She was an OBGYN and or she is still, I believe, and she's now an incredible specialist in maternal mental health. And this book has 5 key ways for like real self-care that is not just bubble baths and juice cleanses.
Yeah.
And I think that's the subtext of her book, even or subtitle. But one of the tips that I got from her when I heard her speak recently was that it's like that maternal guilt of like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I am letting my toddler down when they're crying. That means
Right.
I'm failing as a mom. If we can also see that as just like an option on the sushi train, like, yes, okay, that's one way you could interpret this.
Right.
You also could choose to interpret this as a moment your child is building some struggle muscles and that
Absolutely.
being something that will help them in life.
I
Like,
love that.
oh, okay, then I don't have to pick up that sushi boat of guilt.
Yeah.
I think many of us could benefit from a little more of that too.
I love that. I love that so much. I hope and I think everybody that's listening gets some good input from this. And if you're welcoming a baby, or if you just did welcome a baby and you're trying to kind of navigate two or multiple children as a whole, I guess it all kind of is applicable to. I hopefully you found something that is interesting and helpful to you here.
Yeah.
I will make sure that Flora's information is below too. So definitely check out some of her support if you found her information today help just as helpful as I did. Definitely check it out and you can connect with her. And if you're looking for any other resources, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Flora.
Thanks for having me, Madison.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.